Well, it looks like the SEC is continuing to come up with some new tricks, or essentially rehash old tricks, in order to keep these Hinman emails hidden. In this video, I'm going to tell you what the SEC just did. Well, essentially, they've been doing the same thing 5 times, but this is a new version of it, and it's crazy. It's absolutely ridiculous. They're actually asserting that the Bill Hinman emails cannot be shown because they have attorney-client privilege. It's almost laughable. Even for us in the non-legal world, sounds absolutely ridiculous. So in this video, I'm going to tell you what they said, as to why these emails should stay hidden, should stay privileged, and since Ripple gets a chance to respond to it, well, I'm going to talk about what they're doing because they just filed a motion regarding the SEC's assertion, and it's going to be a really interesting one. Also, in other cryptocurrency news, Solana went offline. Yes, the blockchain known as the Ethereum killer went offline for the 2nd time this year. So I'm going to tell you some of the details about it and whether this Ethereum killer can actually keep up. Hey everyone, my name's Randy. Welcome back to the Late Night Grind. Right now on this channel, we are covering the Ripple versus the SEC case, as well as other cryptocurrency news, investment markets, and personal finance. So if any or all these topics interest you, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join the Late Night Grind community. Also, if you do 3 things, I'd really appreciate it. Smash the thumbs up button, watch this video all the way to the end, and check out my Patreon link in the description below. All right, guys, let's jump into it. So first, Solana went offline yet again. Sunday morning, the head of Solana Labs indicated that Solana was actually offline for 7 hours because their mainnet went out of consensus. Well, in the blockchain world, consensus is pretty important. In fact, it's the only thing that keeps it up and running properly. So its mainnet got out of consensus because of an extremely large amount of data or large amount of transactions that was hitting the Solana mainnet. So according to the Solana Labs, 100 gigabytes per second was actually hitting the network worth of transactions. Now, that's an astronomical amount, and so once they figured out what the problem was, there was a tweet that went out to Solana node owners that basically just said, prepare for restart. Now, if you remember, that happened back in January. They went down a whole bunch of times back in January. I don't know if it was the same reason, but nonetheless, they had to deal with node restarts. Now, if this is something that wants to be considered an Ethereum killer, well, it's going to have to start doing a little bit better. Because in my opinion, the only Ethereum killer right now is potentially Ethereum itself. All right, now let's jump into the Ripple versus the SEC case because the SEC is back to their old/new tricks, arguing, well, anything they can argue to keep these Hinman emails hidden. Protected by deliberative process privilege, or now what they're asserting, protected by client attorney privilege. Yes, that's right. The SEC is arguing that Bill Hinman, who is the head of corporate finance division, was actually a client of the SEC when they were discussing this Bill Hinman speech giving Ethereum its free pass as a non-security digital asset when he was talking to all of these lawyers and, oh, by the way, a bunch of non-lawyers as well, when he actually came up with this speech that was simply his personal opinion. Well, at least that's what they argued in the beginning of the case when they argued that Bill Hinman couldn't be deposed because that speech was just his opinion. But now they're saying, well, no, he's actually a client of the SEC, even though he's actually a commissioner of the SEC discussing this speech with others at the SEC. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. Not to anybody. Now, there's some things going on in this case that we rely on attorneys like Jeremy Hogan, John Deaton, James Filan, among a host of others on Twitter to actually explain this stuff to us like we're 5. But even this one, as I was reading it, you could tell that this was a stretch, like a ridiculous stretch that anybody on the outside listening to some of the details of this case would think, hold on, that doesn't make sense at all. So yes, the SEC filed a motion to the judge asserting that these Hinman emails should be protected because they are protected by attorney-client privilege, claiming that Bill Hinman was in fact the client of the SEC, even though, like I said, they claimed the speech was his personal opinion back last year. Now, as Jeremy Hogan points out, there's a few problems with this. Number one, why would they actually need to argue deliberative process privilege if, in fact, they had client-attorney privilege this whole time? Because client-attorney privilege would actually trump deliberative process privilege. But on top of that, even if it was client-attorney privilege, well, Bill Hinman was talking to other people at the SEC that are not attorneys. Well, guess what? You, being the client, and speaking with non-attorneys, there is no privilege. Those emails and communications would have to come out because there is no attorney-client privilege if you're claiming that, in fact, you were the client. Doesn't make sense. There's so many mental gymnastics that you have to do for the SEC's arguments to actually make sense. this is where Ripple's attorneys shine. So Matt Solomon and Stuart Alderati, Ripple's general counsel, they've been doing an amazing job. In fact, they've been presenting a masterclass as to take down the SEC's arguments. I can't wait to see what they have to say in their response. In fact, just today, they filed a motion with the judge asking for a little bit of an extension till May 13th to respond to these attorney-client privilege assertions by the SEC. It's not going to affect the rest of the court. It's not going to affect the rest of the deadline. It's not going to push this case out any longer. But I think they want this extension to write an argument against it that will absolutely obliterate the SEC's stance. Now, a lot of people are talking on Twitter right now, basically saying that this has been teed up for Ripple's executives to knock it out of the park, and we can finally stop hearing the SEC's arguments as to why they want to hide these Bill Hinman emails. In fact, as Tinvu Hogan pointed out on her video the other day, the SEC has been spending significantly more time trying to hide these email communications than they have actually trying to argue that XRP is a security. So much head scratching going on, it's crazy. So what the SEC did with this client attorney privilege assertion is essentially ask the judge to reconsider the reconsideration of the original considerations that have been going back months. The SEC is not giving up on keeping these emails protected, and they're doing it for a reason. Now, if you watch this channel and some of the other channels that cover this case, there are some very good reasons why they want to cover this. It all has to do with the SEC, with Ethereum, with consensus, and the rabbit hole goes even deeper than that. How about central banks and JP Morgan being involved? Yes, there are some things being dug up on Twitter that absolutely ties them to this. So if you want to follow along with this story or any of the other stories that I cover, make sure you're subscribed to the Late Night Grind YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. Also, there's a link in the description below to my Twitter profile. You can go ahead and follow me there. A lot of the stuff that I talk about on these videos, I talk about on Twitter, or see the information there, or retweet the information and have some discussions there. So make sure you want to follow me there. Also, if you are new to this channel, go ahead and check out the community tab. I put a polls up there because I love to know what you guys think about some of these stories, the blockchain world, the investment world, and several other topics. So if you do that, I'd greatly appreciate it. So let me know in the comment section below what you think about what the SEC is trying to accomplish by asserting this client attorney privilege, which in my opinion really doesn't exist, and what you think Ripple's going to respond with, because their attorneys have been doing an amazing job. Also, let me know if you think Solana is something to keep an eye on. I know there are a lot of people that are invested heavily in Solana because it's one of those blockchains that could be the future. That could be a future DeFi replacement for Ethereum, should anything happen to Ethereum. It's a very interesting one. All right, guys, thank you so much for smashing that thumbs up button. Watch it all the way to the end. And of course, I'll see you guys on the next video.